88% of porn involves violence or aggressive acts.
I don't believe that. When you say violence or aggressive acts, what does that mean?
It involves, at the extreme simulation of sexual
you said
assault.
88%. I watch a lot of I don't know how much porn, violent or aggressive. I'm just curious what counts as an aggressive act. 88% of porn is aggressive acts?
Forceful, causing pain or discomfort to the person that's being involved in the sexual act.
Yeah, so that's one. That was a 2010 study. Another one that was published by Vera Gray, 2021. 1 in 8 had acts of violence.
I could believe the 1 in 8 number. The 88%, there's no chance that that's true.
Urinating and ejaculating on somebody's face, I think that's violent and degrading.
I understand what you're saying, but to the vast majority of normal human beings, urinating on somebody's face is far different than ejaculating on somebody's face. If you want to classify both of them as degrading, that's fine.
Why are they different?
The data, I'm sure you guys, when you were looking at porn, it's very mixed. Big medical consensus is that like this addiction and all that's not a thing. When it comes to couples, it seems like when the couples are on the same page, that it doesn't lead to negative impacts. It leads to that when there's one couple.
What do you mean by on the same page?
Like when both, like if like in a couple, if they don't care if the other person watches porn, which is a lot of couples, then it doesn't seem to have these kind of negative.
Do you think that's the majority?
I think it's a lot of people.
Do you think the majority of couples, the wife or the girlfriend doesn't mind?
That's really hard to tell. The majority of people I know, it's like that. Maybe the majority of people he knows, and the majority of people you know, it's the opposite. So I don't know. I do think in general, people don't see viewing pornography as like cheating.
Do you think the majority of people think that cheating is wrong though, or even asking, can I have an open relationship?
Cheating is wrong because it violates your boundaries, but if that's not violating your boundaries, which it's not for a lot of people, then it doesn't seem to be having these negative
do you think a majority of wives would think that it's wrong for a husband to even ask if he should be allowed to cheat?
That's not cheating. Is about violating boundaries. But if he asks, is it okay if I watch porn when we're not together? A lot of wives, girlfriends would say yes.
But do you think a lot of the wives and girlfriends saying yes are saying yes because they're really chill about it? It's not a big deal. We don't care. Yeah. Or they're saying yes because society is telling them you should say yes.
What I was saying about the boundaries is it okay for a husband to ask, hey, can we renegotiate these boundaries?
Yeah, of course. It's always okay.
So there's nothing wrong with a husband saying, hey, because I think many people that would wives, girlfriends, lots who would say, no, that's wrong that you would even ask. That's just not okay to do. You don't ask for something like that.
Some people, and I think for some people that's not the case. I don't know exactly percentages, but the majority, like exactly, if I'm talking about like people I know, this is all I have, anecdotal evidence, unless there's some study done on this, is a lot of people like don't care.
So I think there's a bit of a myth of this idea that, well, if my boundary is that it's okay to share you sexually with someone else, even though we're in a supposedly committed relationship. I think there's a mythology that as long as there's consent between the two adults, then it's okay for one or both to cheat as long as they know and they're okay.
But you're using the word cheat when we're not talking about cheating.
I'm saying not have sexual fidelity. So have sexual experiences, relationships with other people, whether that's through a screen or in real life. And there are studies that show, I have one right here that shows that married people who more frequently view porn, even if it's together, even if it's like we're consenting, this is a thing we're doing together, are more likely to experience marital dissatisfaction down the line than couples that do not look at porn together. So pornography has a pernicious effect even on consenting couples who are saying we're doing this together. It's so great.
And that was a longitudinal study based on the social science survey with 2,000 people. It's not just like a correlative effect.
Yeah. So even if in our minds we rationalize and we live in the unreality of this is not affecting me, I can have this open marriage or I can have this open relationship and my partner can look at porn or have another sexual relationship, it still affects you in the real world, and it still affects your long-term potential for happiness and fidelity, or not just fidelity, but happiness and fulfillment in the relationship. And so we can tell ourselves a theory or a myth of like, hey, it's going to be okay, I'm cool with this. But in reality, it doesn't work that way in the long run.
But see, like with a lot of this, I'm not sure if you guys were really frustrated looking up this stuff too, because so many studies conflict when it comes to porn and viewing. And it's like women who view pornography report higher sexual satisfaction when they view it with a partner. In fact, the data on women,
why would that be, Jazmen? Why would that be?
What do you mean, why would that be?
Well, you just said women report higher satisfaction if the porn is being viewed with a partner, because at least they feel like I'm not being 100% cheated on in this moment.
No, I don't think that's it. I think you're just putting your framework on everybody else. Like, I'm a woman too. I don't care if my partner watches porn. It's not just me trying to satisfy him. It's not just me being like, and I think a lot of people, you have to separate being with another partner physically versus porn, because I think the numbers there would be vastly different on who's okay if their partner, when they're not around, is watching porn versus who's okay with them sleeping with another person in real life. I think you're going to get widely different opinions there from girlfriends, wives, women on whether that's okay or not.
I would say when we look at the studies, like for example, in 2023, Engelkamp et al. Published a study in the Journal of Sex and Marital Therapy, and it did a quantitative analysis on the most common themes among couples where the man views pornography is that the woman is glad that he talked about it openly, but disapproves, or is allowing the husband to look at pornography but does not want to hear about it. So I think you would say that only a minority of women are positively in favor of this. It's either negative or ambivalent.
Well, and I think the point is the longitudinal study you mentioned and I mentioned is that even those that say they're in favor of it and are like watching it as a couple have worse outcomes down the line. And I think that's part of the point here is that even if you're in a very unique situation, you're making your living doing this thing, right? And so in your mind, of course it's going to be great. I know you're going to defend it and say it's going to be great. But the reality is even people that are defending it or saying it's fine in my marriage down the line don't have the best outcome.
Yeah, well, you guys
also, to be fair too, real quick, because you talked about your career, you guys are both ideologically, you could never change your position on this.
That's completely not true. Of course,
aren't you both religious?
All the studies show that it's good for you. Would you say
I chose
it's okay?
to be Catholic, and I can choose to reject my faith.
Sure, but if like the research,
no one's forcing me to be Catholic.
Yeah, but she could also change her career too, right?
My point is that even
I'm just saying that, like,
all the data show that it was,
just one at a time.
We can change our mind on empirical questions about whether a majority of people feel satisfaction in something. You can't use a social science survey to determine whether something is moral or immoral.
Yeah, sure. I was only pushing back on the claim that like because it's her job, she has to defend it. Because
I was more speaking to outcomes though, because what I'm trying to explain here is not. My point here is that you can say, and one can say, I'm comfortable with this, I'm fine with this, it's okay in my marriage or my relationship. But my point is the social data shows that people who are comfortable with open relationships or pornography in their relationship have worse outcomes down the line.
Well, the people have the worst, worst outcomes when it comes to viewing pornography are people who have moral incongruence with it. That's there's been a huge meta-analysis where they looked at the number one determinant or the number one predictor of having bad experiences with porn or quote unquote porn addiction, which the medical consensus is it's not a thing, is moral incongruence, and being religious is one of the biggest predictors of that. So I agree, porn is really bad for Catholics. I just don't agree that it's bad for everybody.
But my point here is that even people who find a way to morally rationalize the use of pornography or whatever it is, down the line at large outcomes are worse for open marriages.
But that kind of argument is like saying, well, gambling addiction isn't really real because the people who are most upset about gambling are only the people who are upset about losing money. The people who don't care about losing money, well, they're not really that psychologically disturbed about gambling a lot. But maybe they should be worried about that, just like people should be worried about what porn is doing to them when it desensitizes their brain and it makes them think that I need more and more hits and more disturbing pornography to get off.
But the difference is that with, and that's why the DSM-5 accepts gambling. They've said multiple times, they've rejected porn multiple times because you can't make a link to how much people view.
They include hypersexuality under impulse control disorder.
Not in the DSM-5, that's in the World Health Organization. It's a compulsion, but not an addiction.
But is a compulsion a good thing, Jazmen?
Well, is hypersexuality just a compulsion to masturbate, or is it a compulsion to have sexual experiences?
It's either way is a compulsion that you are at the mercy of, and that often brings a lot of harm and suffering.
No, but I don't see the difference there. That if you can be in a situation where I think gambling and porn, they're very similar in their compulsivity. That there are lots of people who can gamble. I gamble, and I didn't lose the house. Lots of people can gamble, but there's a subset when they gamble, it turns their brain on too much and they need to get more and more highs from it, so they gamble more and more and more. And just even seeing the slot machine, it does something to their brain, and they're in a situation where I don't want to be gambling, I feel bad, I don't want to be doing this, but they just can't stop. Similar thing with porn. There's lots of people who watch porn and they don't turn into maniacs or anything like that, but there's a subset where it lights up their brains and they know, I don't want to be doing this, I know it's just killing my marriage, my wife feels awful knowing that I go and look at this stuff, I feel bad, but I can't stop. Don't those seem like similar levels of compulsion?
It may seem that way, but the scientific consensus, right, the DSM-5 statement is that other excessive behavioral patterns such as internet gaming have also been described, but the research on these and other behavioral syndromes is less clear. They make it akin to exercise addiction, shopping addiction, addiction and sex addiction, the data is just not there.
The point is
that it affects you the way gambling does. That's not me saying it. That's what the scientific
but the
consensus is.
DSM-5 is not an infallible Bible for everyone. You have other studies. For example, Love et al. Published a study on the Neuroscientific Foundation of Pornography Addiction, and that was a 2015 article, and they a meta-analysis, and they do link it to other addictions and other compulsions. So I think if people just look at it, you just take a bird's eye view, the person who feels bad gambling and can't stop, the person who feels bad shopping and can't stop, and the person who looks at porn or sees prostitutes and feels bad and can't stop. It all seems pretty similar to me.
But the difference is that with porn, they've done multiple studies where it's like somebody who has positive attitudes toward it versus someone who has negative attitudes toward it. They're watching the same amount and they're having the same.
Those are short-term studies, though.
But it's
so
what all the data
the point
shows.
is, you can tell yourself, again, you can live in unreality and tell yourself, this sexual act of infidelity, I know you don't call it infidelity because someone consented to it, but me going and being polyamorous, or me going and having multiple sexual experiences outside of my marriage or my relationship, or me going and looking at pornography or using pornography, you can tell yourself and experience short-term pleasure. You absolutely
I think
can.
a lot of wives would say that if their husband is chatting with you on a live cam, they would say that's cheating. Do you think a lot of wives would feel that way?
You don't know how many wives find me for their husbands.
Also, wait, hold on. Yeah, when we talk about like cheating or murder, when we talk about like murder is clearly unjustified killing, right?
Where do we talk about murder?
I'm just saying that the word murder means that's unjustified killing. It's baked into there's no such thing as a justified murder. When you use the word cheating, then you're begging the question. Of course, it's wrong. Yeah. But the question is whether or not these behaviors can be engaged in like consensual ways. So to say that but
that takes us back to what is sex for? That might maybe
that's fine. Yeah, we can go back to that. Wait, hold on, wait. I'm just
go right ahead.
Yeah, I'm just saying that you can't just keep calling it cheating over and over and over again because you're begging the question. You're loading in with the word cheating is baked into this idea that a boundary is being violated or that a non-consensual activity is happening, and that might be your position and that might be your opinion, but you can't have that perspective on two other people's boundaries. If they say, well, in our relationship we're allowed to watch porn, it's inappropriate for you to call that cheating.
A different point in response to Jazmen's
Well, no, hold on.
position.
I'm just being clear because Jazmen contradicted that point, and then you tried to explain why. Well, actually, it is always infidelity. When infidelity again has baked into it that you're tautologically trying to define away the argument, which is whether or not you can engage in these behaviors in a healthy way. And you're saying, well, obviously you can't because it's infidelity. It's like, well, you're begging the question. So if we're going to talk about the behaviors themselves, we can, but you can't call them all cheating or infidelity.
You can define the terms as you please. I think my point here with Jazmen.
Well, hold on. Wait, when I'm defining it as I please, we all agree that that's what those words mean. Every single person watching. Infidelity and cheating means that you are doing something in contradiction to what your partner wants. We all agree with that, and we all agree that those are bad.
Well, it's specific to sexual behavior.
Sure,
outside of your
but everybody here agrees that infidelity and cheating is bad, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so we all agree with that. So then why say like, well, this is cheating? We already agree that that's bad. It's whether or not it is cheating,
we can agree to disagree on the point that yes, I think it is infidelity or cheating.
So you think that
to
if
have
like
sex outside of
two
your
people are in a
relationship
relationship and they say that hey, it's okay if we watch porn, you think they're still cheating on each other?
I think that is being unfaithful to each other. Yes.
Okay. So she has a different view on.
Yeah, I understand.
She has a different definition, I guess.
And we can agree to disagree on that at this point. But my larger point that I was trying to make with you, Jazmen, or kind of get to the bottom of was, yes, you can say I'm feeling great about this. I just had an orgasm. It feels great. I'm so happy with this, pornography I just consumed, or this, webcam person I just spoke with, or whatever, or had this, relationship with, or whatever it is. But in the long term, these things don't serve the person or society. So we can actually agree with you that hedonism feels good in the moment. Like, I don't think Trent would even disagree. At least for the person taking part in the hedonism, they might feel sick deep in their conscience, but I think in the moment, physically, they're going to feel good. And that's the temptation of hedonism, right? It's like, it feels good. Of course, I'm going to do it.
But that's not true. I mean, women who view pornography report higher sexual satisfaction, improved communication about sex with their partner, greater comfort with their own sexual, greater comfort with their own sexual orientation, more frequent and higher quality sex, easier time reaching orgasm.
Study following
There's
their
multiple
life.
Studies. Almost all the data on women in pornography in the old days, it used to give them negative body image issues, but since like people like me, you're welcome, or like more amateur porn started coming out, actually women report feeling better about their bodies. There's a huge study about women feeling much better about their vulvas now because they're seeing different types of vulvas represented in porn. So
you think pornographic accounts online, like there's a lot of Instagram accounts, for example, that are kind of some soft core pornography. are making women at large and young girls at large feel good about their bodies.
Pornography, there's
I don't think
studies
that's
about
correct at all.
pornography and women who view pornography, because a lot of women watch like amateur porn more so than the mainstream studio porn now, and you're seeing all different kinds of body types. So that study that was done on women who now feel like, oh, I actually feel better about my vulva, I feel better about my body. When we compare that to women who viewed porn in the past, but when studio porn was the only kind of porn out, we're seeing a big difference.
Yeah, I mean,
And
at large, sexual objectification of women online and
who is the
objectifying
majority? Who views porn
especially
more,
certain
men or
body
women?
parts, has been detrimental to young girls' mental
men
health.
view porn more, but women also do view it.
Sure,
like,
I don't disagree with that, but I think we just still need to go back to just the idea of my argument. I think would be our argument that why pornography and prostitution is bad for society is that it encourages this false view about what sex is for that leads to all of these kinds of bad consequences.
Well, what are the bad
Wait,
consequences?
also, wait, real quick. Can I run through something? So I'm taking notes on something. Okay, so real quick on just like from top to bottom. So,
Well, why don't we go back and forth?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, we can. Yeah, I just want a chance to go back and forth on something. So I heard a lot of points from Red, but I haven't been able to jump in on a lot of these. On the first one, so in 2013, the FBI redefined rape to include all forms of penetration on somebody, including like digital penetration. So that largely explains like the huge gap in numbers there. I don't know if you were trying to imply that in 2013 there was a spike that happened due to pornography or due to some other reason.
I'm saying that's certainly plausible. It's a part of it, and you don't have enough evidence to say that explains all of the increase.
No, but there was a massive redefinition.
It also wouldn't explain the increase at the same time in England.
And you have
I don't
no
know about the
evidence
increase
that
in England.
porn-
Well, I don't know about the increase in England, but I feel like if the numbers dramatically jumped in 2013, it's strange that you didn't search for the answer for why they jumped and just assumed because it fits the narrative of it must be pornography or whatever. When a redefining of rape would be a really big reason why the numbers might change. For instance, if you're familiar with Sweden's sexual assault statistics relating to immigration and everything, like the Swedish redefinition of a lot of these crimes is a reason why some of these numbers jump. So I think anytime you see a huge jump in the data, I think if you're inquisitive, you'll usually ask like, oh, well, I wonder why the data changed.
But definitely, there's also been meta-analysis of porn consumption that shows that many studies that show the link between porn use, and keep in mind, a lot of porn today, some studies say 88% of porn today involves violence or aggressive acts.
I don't believe that.
And
there's
women
a link
are more
between,
likely
Wait, when you say violence or aggressive acts, what does that mean?
It involves, at the extreme simulation of sexual
you said
assault.
88%. I watch a lot of porn. I don't know how much porn is violent or aggressive. I'm just curious what counts as an aggressive act. 88% of porn is aggressive acts?
Forceful, causing pain or discomfort to the person that's being involved in the sexual act.
Yeah, so that's one that was a 2010 study. Another one that was published by Vera Gray 2021 in the British Journal of Criminology said that it put it at 1 in 8 had acts of violence that would be considered violence, like under things like for example, binding forelimbs and penetration, gagging.
Sure. So I could buy the 1 in 8.
The 1 in 8. My first point.
Women are the ones that are disproportionately actually seeking that stuff out. So is that also just to police people?
They're also disproportionately.
I would say.
Wait, hold on just a sec. Yeah. Destiny, you wanted to go, and then Lila, I'll have you respond.
I just wanted to
go ahead, Destiny.
So I could believe the 1 in 8 number, the 88%. There's no chance that that's true.
That's not of all pornography. It's of the 300 most common.
Sure. I'm just saying 88% of all pornography being violent, unless you're defining like oral sex as violent, there's no shot that the number is that high. That's just
it's of the most popular. That's why on Pornhub you're having teens, and then you're having step parents involved or stepmom involved.
I think urinating and ejaculating on somebody's face, I think that's violent and degrading.
I understand what you're saying, but to the vast majority of normal human beings, urinating on somebody's face is far different than ejaculating on somebody's face. Maybe in the Catholic world, those are similar things, but in the ordinary world, those are two completely and totally separate acts.
I think most people in the regular world would consider that utterly degrading.
I'm saying those two things are different. If you want to classify both of them as degrading, that's fine.
Why are they different?
Because I don't know how much into detail, but urinating on somebody's face, the kink of water sports, is considered to be generally more extreme. There's far fewer people that are into it, and you're involving non-sexual fluids now in like a sexual sense. That's just considered a more hardcore type of.
Why? If anything, urine is probably a more sterile liquid, and just because fewer people do it doesn't mean it's more extreme. I'm sure there's fewer people who do like Star Trek cosplay porn, but that doesn't mean it's more extreme than others just because it's a minority. I think that's just
it's probably considered more extreme. It's not an intuition. It's because generally the further you get away from things that are less directly involved with sex, and then like the more uncomfortable those things tend to make people, the more we would classify those things as being kind of like extreme. I think is like I don't know if I'm sure we could have a huge debate on like, is bukkake porn considered extreme, or is it just like a hardcore kink? We can get into it. I'm just saying in general, if you look at the number of people into a kink like water sports, or you mentioned like scatology, like stuff like that, versus
Water
people that are
sports.
into, like,
You're talking about, is that just urinating on others, or is it other?
urinating on people?
Yeah.
Or I think anything involving pee. I'm not sure. I don't.
Okay.
Maybe Brian can fill us in more on.
Because that's just euphemism. I enjoy water sports. I don't enjoy that.
Well,
so.
that's what it's called.
No,
right?
I don't care. I mean, people can come up with all this sort of stuff to smooth over. What is
hold
actually
on. No one
going
is trying to. I'm just trying to give an accurate accounting of of how we refer to these things. If you're looking them up or trying to find.
Go ahead. Did you want to ask anything else?
I
I
reject this idea of like, well, as pornography increases, child sex material increases. Therefore,
That's a fact, though.
That's
Destiny.
fine that it's a fact. But what I notice is oftentimes with porn, to try to refute like the central point, people will point to a negative outcome that might be increasing and pretend that counts as a refutation of the single point. A statement that I can make.
That's not what we did, though, Destiny.
That's exactly what you're doing.
No.
You're saying that as
It's
pornography increases, child sexual material might increase, which means it's an attack against pornography. What I would say is...
It's a form of pornography.
Let me finish my statement. What I would say, it is a form of pornography. Literally, the increase of anything involving, say, children playing video games necessarily increases the exposure of them to people looking to abuse children. That doesn't necessarily mean that online video games or children playing online video games are bad. It just means you have to control for the negative outcome of people abusing people playing online video games. Same thing with pornography. It's not an argument against pornography if some people might abuse it in a way. There might be some people that actually record actual sexual assault. That's not an argument against pornography. It's an argument against people doing that bad thing.
It is an argument of the most commonly searched for terms are things like teen, barely legal, and they're constantly searched over and over as the most popular thing, which people aren't doing with like video games.
what
I mean,
is, like,
here's
the harm?
If something- well, if
but
something-
here's the theory that I think that the social data proves very clearly, and this is the point, that when we disorder sex, when we divorce sex from love, fidelity, commitment, family, like the whole project of marriage, I'm gonna, sex can bring life into the world. If we do bring a life into the world, we're gonna stick together, love each other, build a family together. When you take sex out of that context, out of the context of love and marriage, and you put it in the context of my goal, my orgasm, what I want, right? At whatever cost I can pay, provided someone else consents, right? It's not just, I think, that person that will suffer and the other people engaged directly in that will suffer, but it is children. And so you said, well, yes, okay, there's a proliferation of child sexual assault material, yeah, but that's not saying porn is responsible for that. That is a form of the porn that's being created and consumed at large in our society. So to say that children are somehow unscathed by the proliferation of porn, I think is totally untrue, Destiny.
That's fine.
And in
but
addition,
to say that okay.
and in addition, I'll just say one other thing. The flip side of this, we've debated on this before, Trent has as well. Sexual hedonism at large, in addition, leads to what we have today, which is abortion on demand. You mentioned abortion rates are so low. They're actually very high. There are nearly 1 million a year
they're lower
in this
since
country.
When porn, with the wide availability of porn, it's gone down a lot. So I'm just curious, because you guys are saying, oh my gosh, there's all this violent stuff now.
But Jazmen,
I'm looking at the data. There's nothing linking porn to increased violence. Is there actually a lot of studies that link the wide availability of pornography to less violence? I have
there's
3
more
studies
pornography
right here.
today.
We found that in the Czech Republic, in Denmark,
3 or 4
in Japan,
decades ago,
in
it was
China,
find
and
a
in Hong
Playboy
Kong.
magazine or go to an adult video store. Today, porn is everywhere.
So why are we not seeing this proliferation of violence and all these terrible things happening?
We're seeing a lot of,
those are all less than they were before.
Ills.
When there were just those Playboy magazines, we had way more of that stuff than we do now with pornography
so you're
widely
saying
available.
So is your argument that we had less child sexual assault material?
Child abuse has declined.
So are you saying that child sexual assault material can be created without child abuse?
I'm saying that like child abuse cases, all of those have gone down. I'm also saying that
incorrect,
STD
Jazmen.
rates have gone. This is according to
that's incorrect.
So
that's incorrect.
Is this incorrect? Okay. Well, what data do you have that shows that?
So your argument is that the proliferation of porn, somehow that has led to less child sexual abuse.
Led to. I'm not saying causation.
So what's your argument?
My argument here is that if porn became widely available and it's so violent and it's so terrible, then how come we're not seeing those outcomes
Why is there a proliferation
of
child sexual assault material on the internet and it increases every year?
Because we have the internet now. We didn't have the internet before, but since we've had the internet, we've had less abortion, less syphilis, less gonorrhea, less teen sex, less teen birth rates have fallen 33% according to the CDC. SA has declined, and then
your argument is that child sexual assault material is not porn, or what is your argument?
My argument, I'm not even talking about sexual assault, child sexual assault material.
What are you
My argument here is that when porn became widely available, we didn't see an increase in violence. In fact, I have lots of studies here that show that once porn became widely available, like for instance in the Czech Republic.
When did porn become widely available in the United States?
Around the early 2000s. That's what I read.
So I think I can understand the argument you're making, but I don't think it bears out. For example, with divorce rates, as an example, as I said earlier, one of the second highest most quoted thing when it comes to divorce today is the pornography use of one of the partners.
But divorce rates have also gone down since the
but
early
overall
2000s.
They've gone up over the last
not since the
40,
so this
50
is my
years.
question.
But,
since porn has become available, they have not gone up. They've actually gone down since the early 2000s.
One reason they go down is people are choosing not to marry.
That's fine, but what I'm
that's
saying,
true.
and I don't think they're choosing not. I don't think they're not choosing to get married because porn is available. But you have no link to that. My question is,
but hold on, I think it's a fact. It is a fact that the sexual revolution, which took place in this country mid 20th century, which opened the floodgates of pornography, first with Playboy magazine, and then later on with the internet, which opened the floodgates to no-fault divorce, more divorce, swinger culture, open marriages, all of this stuff, abortion, all of this stuff, that those social ills all mushroomed together. And they still exist in large quantities in our society today together. Because when you treat sex just as orgasm or as something that as an adult I'm entitled to as long as I consent and someone else is consenting, and sex has no other morality around it, you are opening the door, and we have the doors wide open to divorce, to abortion, to a lot of the unhappiness that we're seeing in relationships
So you
today.
said all the social data, though, agrees with you, but I'm pointing out that abortion rates have fallen 41% since the 90s.
But abortion rates since porn has been entered into the mainstream
has
gone up over the last 50 years dramatically.
But it became widely available in the late 90s. So the CDC abortion rates have fallen 41%
I don't think the data
since
shows
the
what you're saying it's showing.
People look it up. This is the CDC that's saying this.
But you don't think that porn is the only reason?
I don't think that. But my question to you is that if it's such a terrible thing, where are these terrible outcomes?
And
because I'm not seeing them.
I'm trying to say that porn, whether it was the Playboy porn or it's the vastly available internet porn.
The terrible
so you think they're the same?
I think that they are part of the same problem, which is divorcing meaning from sex and putting arms around hedonistic culture that breaks down families and breaks down marriages. And I'm saying that in the last 50 years in this country, we have seen unprecedented divorce, unprecedented abortion, we've seen unprecedented STIs. The sexual revolution's harm
Are we talking about the sexual revolution or porn? Because I'm not talking about 50 years. I'm talking about since porn became widely available. You guys are saying, and all these terrible things, teen mom porn, so violent. Where are the outcomes that show that this is such an harm? Because I'm not seeing that. I have 3 studies here. Actually, there's a lot of evidence that porn has a cathartic effect.
Do you think it's bad, Jasmine, that the average first stage of exposure to pornography is 11 years old?
I don't think that's ideal, but I don't think
no, it's not asked. I said, is it bad?
Yeah, I think it's bad, but I'm not seeing that it's so bad that it's leading to such terrible outcomes, because it's not. Where are these outcomes?
What happens when children are exposed to pornography?
Actually, there's also a lot of conflicting data on that. A lot of the data on this is really frustrating because it's really conflicting. I have studies here that show that it's not.
But really, Jasmine, part of the reason for that is we're living in a social experiment.
Wait, hold on 1 second. I want to know, is it bad when 11-year-olds, their first exposure to pornography, I'm just saying that's a bad thing.
Yeah, it's a bad thing in the sense that it's not ideal.
Why is it bad? What does it do to them?
It's like they're not old enough. Their prefrontal cortex isn't developed enough to be able to look at that and realize what's real, what's not real, how sex is supposed to go. So I don't think porn is a great way.
How is sex supposed to go?
Probably not like if you're on Pornhub watching like 8 people gangbang someone, they're going to think that is normal.
That's not normal?
Not
okay, wait, hold on, wait. Okay, I think when we talk about how sex is supposed to go, I think we have to build a constructive case for what are different ways that we can view sex. You guys seem to be really happy to say that like sex ought to be this, or society's destroyed sex, or blah, 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 blah. I think that you can posit a separate argument that sex is actually something that the body is capable of experiencing, that is a lot of fun, and we've evolved beyond the need to view sex as just a tool or a facility to pump out children, and instead can view it as a way to bond with people or have fun or enjoy recreationally. I think that we have the tools today to enjoy that because we've got things to protect or cure STDs. We've got ways to prevent pregnancies. We've got different types of birth controls. I think that it's okay that society has taken on a different view of sex, just like we've taken on a different view of women working jobs, or a different view of what kind of clothes can we wear because we have air conditioning, or a different view of what are the hours that we can be awake, where we can travel. I think it's just natural that different things will evolve over time, that will view different things. Yeah, we can view things differently based on our way of engaging with them.
According to the Goodbecker Institute, for women that got abortions, 50% of them in the month that they got pregnant were using contraception. So when you kind of say, well, now we have these technologies that can somehow sort of blunt the natural consequences of sex.
I'm sorry, wait,
so
what was that supposed to refute?
So what's that supposed to refute is you're saying that we have all of these powers now.
To change the way we engage with sex,
to change the way we engage with sex.
Was anything I said incorrect?
I think it's fully incorrect.
Okay,
to say
do you think that contraception reduces the likelihood? Well, no, let's one stat at a time.
Let me finish.
No, hold on.
I didn't even get to ask my question.
I didn't even barely talk for 2 sentences, and you wanted to cut me off with the thing about abortion. So I'm going to ask you, do you think contraception is effective at dramatically reducing the rates of getting impregnated?
I think that at large, contraception has led to the mindset, a contraceptive mindset.
I'm going to ask the same question again when you finish this.
I think
depends
that over time, it actually increases, it actually leads to more abortion over time.
Do you think that contraception is effective at preventing pregnancies?
It can in the short term, but over time it leads to more abortion.
Really? Do you have any evidence that somebody that is on, so you're saying you have a study right now that shows that somebody on contraception on average has more children over their lifetime than somebody that doesn't use contraception?
No, what I'm saying
is, so then you don't have any evidence for that. I don't know. You're giving me a lot of like socially constructed opinions you have no data for based on your presumptions of how you think that sex should operate religiously, but I reject those things. So obviously we know that contraception.
We are not making a case that sex ought to be done religiously or ought to be done in this particular way. We are just saying that the view that prostitution and pornography require, which is that sex is just a hedonistic activity.
Why does it require that?
Because it would be wrong if how would you answer the question?
It can have many purposes. I think that when I go to a massage parlor, I'm paying $80 to get a massage.
Right.
That can just be a person giving me a massage. With a partner, having a partner rubbing your back or your neck, that can feel like a lot more romantic. So, just because I go to the massage parlor doesn't mean I devalue the experience with like a partner. No? Or do you think it does? Earlier, you used the phrase, sex work isn't real because sex for hire doesn't make sense. It's like a friend for hire. What is a therapist? Can't you pay a therapist to review your problems with them, and then they give you feedback?
But here's the thing.
And once you stop paying a sex worker, they stop having sex with you. Yeah.
But the whole point
that's why it's called work. Yeah.
No,
go ahead.
Because
the point
we
is that
don't
it's more meaningful than that.
Of course, it is more meaningful. I would agree. Just like having a really good, intimate conversation with a friend is more meaningful than having an intimate conversation with a therapist.
We've skipped around so many different places.
Only because I'm following you on your tangents. Go ahead.
I was trying to ask. You made a.
So if sex work is just a skill, it's something that people enjoy.
Yeah.
Do there have to be? Is this something that only specialists can? Well, let's say, for example, so Jazmen, a lot of people do OnlyFans. They have other jobs. Like you're a lawyer, people have other jobs. So you can have someone who's a masseuse and does OnlyFans, or a therapist and does OnlyFans, right? Okay. So you're like a sex worker by night, masseuse, therapist during the day. Would it be okay if they offered those sex services as a part of their day job, being a masseuse?
Depends on what the day job is. If it's like a lawyer or something, or if it's like a therapist, probably not, because you're violating like an appropriate relationship to have with somebody. But if it's like your auto mechanic and he also sells you like pictures of his dick, it's probably not as big of a deal.
Let me give you another example. So my wife was a nurse at the hospital, so she worked with neurotelemetry, and people have brain injuries, spine injuries, stuff like that, and also older people and people who would need things like bathing and cleaning. Okay. So they need, to be cleaned, including clean their peritoneum, perineal care. So just like groin, crotch, butt, that kind of stuff.
Sure.
And some of them would ask her, and this would also happen to other nurses, hey, while you're down there, could you just play with my wee-wee a little bit, or, masturbate me. Okay. So let's say you have a nurse who is also an OnlyFans, is a sex worker on the side. Should she be allowed to offer that?
My understanding, and I'm not a medical professional, but my understanding is that when you're making decisions related to patient care, if a patient under your care, engaging in friendly or sexual relationships with them can cause an inappropriate crossing of boundaries that compromises your ability to deliver good medical care. So I would say that in the case where somebody's like a therapist or a medical professional that's making decisions relating to your healthcare, it's probably not appropriate.
Because you just related
but
therapy
why?
to friendship.
Lawyers can't even accept.
Hold on, wait. How did my relation of therapy to friendship break anything that I just said?
Because you're saying that you can't enter this new dynamic of sexual relationship in a healthcare setting because that somehow violates the healthcare setting.
What's
Why?
being violated?
That's Trent's question. Why?
What did I just say was being violated?
What is being violated?
I said it like 3 times. I'll repeat it again. It's compromising your ability to deliver care.
But if the care is included,
let me ask you this question: Is
the sex work? You wouldn't include sex work and health work together in care unless you're
So.
I mean, we could invent a scenario that's true. What if you're going to a hospital and part of the care is my husband has issues with erectile dysfunction? Maybe part of the health services is them jerking you off to make sure everything's working. In that case, you would combine it. Would you agree, or would you say it's still inappropriate? Wait, I want to answer for that. Would you, if that case, would that be an appropriate combination
of like? No, I don't think you should go to people to jerk you off. No, that's.
Do you think it would be? Do you think us ignoring your personal sexual views? Do you think it would be appropriate?
It's not a personal sexual view. It's the view that's actually been held for thousands of years by many millions and billions of people.
So if you're going to a hospital and they're trying to check you for a working sexual function, them seeing if you can get an erection, that would be an inappropriate way for them to examine you.
I think if they are really trying to determine if you can get an erection, there's a way, and you're a married person in a marriage.
What if you're not a married person? What if you're single?
Why would they need to determine that?
Because believe it or not, there are people in this world that even when they're not married, they want to ensure that their sexual function is working.
And sex is...
Wait, I really want to answer that. You disagree with that? You don't think your sexual function is relevant if you're not married?
No, I think it's relevant, but I think that I don't think it would be good care to go into a hospital
I really want to answer this. So if you have problems with erectile dysfunction, it would be inappropriate for a healthcare provider to assess the ability of you to get an erection while you're at the hospital. That's inappropriate.
I mean, I think it depends. I'm curious what the standard of care is for that right now. I mean, do you know what the standard of care is?
I'm not, but I'm asking you as a hypothetical. But I'm asking if you go to the hospital, you have problems with erectile dysfunction. Doctor, I've got issues. And I say, okay, we're going to give you a medication. We're going to try something. And we'll see if we can get an erection.
I think it would be a strange form of care to say, well, let's try.
I didn't ask if it was strange or not. I asked if it was appropriate.
I don't think it would be appropriate.
No, you don't think it would be appropriate.
I think giving a medication.
So that type of healthcare is totally outlawed.
We would agree.
To be clear, giving a medication would be appropriate.
It's fine to use medical treatment.
To stimulate them.
It's fine to use medical treatment to see if your body is working properly. It's fine to do things to acquire semen, for example. You might use, for example, with some patients, use electroejaculation stimulation of the prostate in order to get... Well, for some patients, that's what you have to do, including if they're paralyzed.
Okay, I understand what you just said was a way more hardcore kink than water sports, but okay, go ahead.
No, to see if you can ejaculate, to see if you're able... There is a difference between trying to determine if your body is functioning properly and saying that... Sex is just a service that can be provided. If we provide people in the hospital, we provide them all kinds of services to make sure they're comfortable, right? Like we give them television. They don't need that to live, right?
Okay.
But it makes them comfortable, correct?
Yeah.
So we give patients stuff in the hospital to make sure that they stay as comfortable. We give them television. We give them different food they can choose. We give them bathing, obviously. And when they're very uncomfortable, we do things to make sure they're comfortable. So if a patient says, sex would make me very comfortable, why wouldn't, if a nurse can clean the guy's testicles and penis and is already handling all of this, why not just you put on the gloves and give him a hand job?
Well, one is because it's illegal. Two, if it were legal, my guess would be the procedure for that would be you would bring in a third party or you contract out to somebody.
Why do you bring in a third party?
I've already explained it.
Let me finish. Why do you need to bring in a third party to give the guy a hand job and not a third party to wipe his butt and clean between his peritoneum?
Because when you start engaging in romantic or sexual or
who says it's romantic? It's just getting.
I said or means any of these. Yeah. When you engage in romantic or sexual or friendship type things, that these things are all inappropriate because they compromise your ability to objectively offer care. For instance, would it be inappropriate to say, well, can you please just like jerk me off? You're going to clean my ass? Yes, that would be, because if a patient starts to have a sexual relationship with a practitioner, then if that practitioner has to make a tough call on that patient's health, that might be compromised. The same way that let's say the person starts saying like, man, my kids never.
Why does sex do this stuff?
Let me just finish. Hold on, I got to finish this one thing. Oh my God. Okay. Let's say that the patient comes in or the nurse comes in and the patient starts talking to the nurse like, man, my kids aren't calling me, like I don't know what to do. And then the nurse sits around and they start talking blah, 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 blah. That would be equally inappropriate. That would be incredibly inappropriate. If they started to form a very close friendship with a patient, that would also be inappropriate. Because again, if a tough call has to be made on the patient, at some point, you might not be able to make that tough call because now your judgment is compromised. This is why surgeons that have like wives or husbands don't operate on them because their judgment is compromised.
Well, what if you can give hand jobs and you're not attached? It's just sex work.
Well, right now, in terms of how human relationships and everything work, it seems to be the case that...
you're saying something very important, which is that there is an emotional, psychological component to sex.
As a lawyer, we have rules on how we're able to engage with people. We're not allowed to accept gifts, for instance.
I want to make sure I'm understanding Destiny correctly and what he just said.
Hold on.
Okay.
Let Lila go, then we'll have you come in. Go.
And I do want to get back to the contraception thing, but you had said that there's an emotional, romantic connection to sex. That's I don't know if you used the word.
Oftentimes there can be, yes.
Yes. So that sounds like more than work.
It can be.
Yeah. So you're when you guys talk about sex
no, hold
work,
on. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, real quick. I reject that. What do you mean that sounds like more than work?
When you talk about sex work, like we can sell this commodity of sex, like
it's a service.
To lead, like it's a service. You're saying, well, but more emotions and psychological, romantic feelings get involved. Therefore, it doesn't belong in the professional setting of healthcare. That's what you're saying.
But like,
so how can you still say it's work and it's a professional?
Do teachers
job?
Work?
Yes.
Do they have emotional connections to children and parents?
And they should. That's
okay,
a healthy
so then
thing.
that argument doesn't make any sense. So what's the next one?
Well, are you saying that a nurse should not have an emotional connection at all to her patient?
Generally, they try to minimize it, yes.
They should have empathy. That's actually required for nurses to have empathy.
You're telling
They
me
shouldn't have empathy. They should have compassion. They're two different things because empathy can compromise your ability to deliver.
Are you
the word
saying a
compassion,
nurse
that's fine,
can't
but
understand the personal background, desires, hopes, and develop a friendly rapport with a patient?
You can have like
a
a friendly
distinction where there isn't one.
No, it's a key. It's a crucial distinction. Having a friendly rapport with somebody is different than becoming personally, emotionally invested in the outcome. You have to maintain an appropriate level of distance, whether you're a lawyer,
Right.
whether
And
you're a
I
medical
agree.
professional.
And sex crosses that line because of what sex just intrinsically
But many
is.
things cross that line. Like I just said, when you're a lawyer, you can't accept certain gifts. You can't get too close to your clients. They can't become like best friends to you. That's going to cause problems for you down the line. We take entire classes on this, on all the ways we're not supposed to get too close with our clients. And it's not all sexually. It's even just in friendship.
Yeah.
So professionalism, the standard for professionalism, I agree, it's not professional to offer sexual services to somebody in a setting where that's not appropriate. But there are other things that aren't appropriate either. It doesn't mean they're all bad and that you can't use them in a different
So
way.
I think, the point that you're making though is that sex is personal. It involves it can involve romance. It involves feelings. It involves this connectivity that you sometimes can't help but have. And that's our point.
Well, I have a question.
That's not your point.
That is a very important part of our point.
No, that's every single human's point. We all understand that. Everyone here agrees that a therapist...
You understand that, but you also think it's acceptable to have these sexual relationships with potentially thousands of people online
You're
for sale.
not understanding. The whole point of your argument has to do with dual relationships. And you're trying to apply this to singular relationships. We all agree here that a therapist having sex with a patient would be bad, right?
Why?
Because it impacts
Don't-
their
what do you mean?
ability-
Let's say the therapist is a
Well,
sex
a therapist
therapist.
should
A sex therapist is obviously not the type of therapist.
But
I'm talking
hold
about.
on.
No,
hold
but
on.
that's the thing.
Gifts
A
from
sex
my
therapist,
clients. Hold on.
it's illegal for sex therapists to have sex with their own clients. They can talk to them about sex.
Hold on. I'm not even sure that's true. Hold on. Okay, I can't ask a question because I'm not going to get any engagement.
You
So
may
I'll just
ask.
make my
That's
point.
not true, Jazmen.
I'm not.
We're
It is a
engaging.
very simple question. Can a therapist have sex with a patient? And then you're like, well, what about sex therapy?
No.
Well, I think Jazmen considers what she does a
Correct.
form
But
of
I'm
And they
saying
can't because
that
it compromises your ability to give good
But
therapy.
what I am saying is that if sex is just a service that is provided, and it has this...
we don't have to. I understand the next stage of your argument. I'm trying to show why that's ridiculous. I understand it. You're going to say,
Well,
fine,
then I will take it out of the dual role to the single role, and I'll give you
Wait.
a hypothetical.
Let's just explore this for 2 seconds, then we can go to whatever you're going to jump to, okay? A therapist cannot have sex with a patient because it compromises their ability to deliver good therapy.
Well, it
we
depends
agree
on
that.
their relationship, right?
And no, that's not the only reason.
Oh my God.
Go ahead.
It does.
It would also be equally inappropriate for a therapist to form a close friendship with and to go out and have
Yeah,
drinks or
that was
meals
my
with a
point.
patient.
Not the
But it
reason-
doesn't mean that drinks and dinner are super
bad.
inappropriate.
It's not just
and
that, because when a
ultra-special.
therapist has sex with a patient, Destiny, it's grape. Because the therapist has a power imbalance over the patient and can manipulate their emotions, and there are consent issues involved.
Sure, that's true as well. That's not what we're
That's the
focused
more
on here.
important reason.
Okay, we can pick a nurse and a patient
I
as
think
well.
I think it must be said that a lot of people involved in creating pornography and prostitution consider what they do a form of therapy for the client.
That's not at all what
There
we're
is a
talking about.
reason that the sexual revolution has coincided with us being more cognizant of things like consent, because the whole point of the sexual revolution and allowing people more freedom in how they want to express their sexuality is that it's a choice, but it's still your choice, right? That's why things like marital rape was outlawed in the 90s. We have the rape shield doctrine. You're not allowed to bring up a victim's past sexual history in a sexual assault case. We have the Me Too movement. So I don't think power imbalances are important because that can get in the way of consent. So consent is super important, but what you choose to do is not. That's what the sexual, it's not an accident that those two things
And
coincided.
Me Too is a reaction against the excesses of the sexual revolution. So, I mean, I think to say that these things are given to us by the sexual revolution is totally,
well, let me
It is though.
All right,
like
so-
marital rape, the marital rape,
the early feminists,
rape
the early
shield.
feminists.
You're saying Me Too is a reaction to what?
Me Too is the reaction to the excesses of the sexual revolution.
I don't think
and,
so.
And a lot of the reform that was requested in the way that marriages took place and marital rape protection was early feminists who are not sexual revolutionaries, who themselves wanted family values, and many of them were pro-life.
But no.
So to say that it was the sexual revolutionaries that gave us these things is not correct.
I'm saying that those two things coincided at the same time, because the whole point of the sexual revolution was that, okay, you're not going to be ruined now because you choose to have casual sex, but if someone comes in, because there was a lot of inappropriate harassment, rape, etc., statute of limitations has been increased due to the Me Too movement. All of these things coincided because consent is a huge part of the sexual revolution.
And
I think that
And Me Too was a response to people seeing women as commodities that they can acquire and seeing sex as a means of acquiring that commodity, basically. It's responding to a dehumanizing view of sex. Now, I agree, many people don't have that view, but I do think that the hedonistic view of sex does lead to that. But here's the question I wanted to ask, just to get back to what sex is for and why I think it shows that this view of sex is absurd. All right, suppose you had a friend and they said, because this is parlaying on the idea that sex is just it's a hedonistic activity people can share with consent. Like, say, for example, like martial arts. So martial arts, if I go
Nobody thinks sex is like that.
No, hold on. Let me make the analogy.
Okay,
if I start martial arts with somebody without their consent, I'll go to jail because that's assault, right? If I just go up and punch somebody. But I can ask them, hey, do you want to spar with me a little bit?
Okay.
And then that's okay because we have consent and it's this kind of activity. Now, imagine that would it be healthy to have a friend who says, hey, I'm glad you and I are getting into martial arts together, but I really feel like we can only be friends if you only do martial arts with me. Or we can only be friends if you only do tennis with me. Or I want you to be my only friend. You're the only friend that I have. With those examples, would you say that those are disordered friendships?
Probably, yeah.
All right, so my next question would be, is it disordered for someone to say, I want you to be the only person I have sex with, you're the only person who has sex with me? Do you think that's disordered?
Not necessarily, no.
What's the difference between activities that are pleasurable and consensual, martial arts, chess, tennis, spending time together, and sex then? What is the difference between the two, that one is disordered, it's a friendship you should not get in, and the other, we would say, not even that it's not disordered, but it's the way things ought to be.
It might
with
be
sex.
the love of your life in a marriage.
What's the difference?
The difference is going to be the preferences of the people that are partaking in these things. Some people might feel like they like to do martial arts with a lot of people, and for sexual activity, I think people tend to prefer to be more exclusive with that. There's probably other things we could think of that
Is
people tend to
that
be.
natural? Or should we think like that's the way they ought to treat sex?
Whether or not it's natural or not is a separate question.
Well, it seems obvious that if someone says, I want you to be my only friend and you can't have other friends, we'd say that's a friendship you probably shouldn't get into, right?
Generally, yeah.
Then why?
But like, if we're going to use like the natural,
why don't we say the same thing then about I want you to be the only person I have sex with? In fact, we say that's a good.
So if we're talking
Hold on,
about
wait,
sex
because
work, if a subscriber told to me, "You're the only person I want you to," I'm the only person I want you to have, I would say no. That's not the context of this.
Yeah, because you're selling a business and you can't have one customer.
Yes, but my point is that just because that's one way to see sex is like an intimate, monogamous thing, there are a lot of people who don't view it that way, who don't want to view it that way. And I'm wondering, back to my original question, where are these outcomes that are so detrimental to society that's happening because some people that want to be polyamorous are not getting in the way of your monogamy.
Well, you don't think that 20% of couples expressing unhappiness because of porn use in the relationship is a problem?
20% of couples? Where is that?
Yeah, this is a study from, and then also the statistic about the amount of people that are pornography use being listed as one of the reasons for divorce. You don't think that that's meaningful?
It could.
And
There's
that
many
matters?
things that are listed as divorce, but I have a bunch of studies here that show that since, like I just told you, porn actually can have a cathartic effect on violence. The STD rates come down. There's a huge study that shows that
bad?
AIDS or HIV could go down by 30 to 40% if we were to just decriminalize prostitution. So there is evidence going both ways when it comes to porn and sex work, and I don't see anything that's super conclusive that this is just a terrible harm,
Is-
more than
That's
something
a
like
study from the
alcohol
Wheatley
would be.
Institute, by the way. About 20% of couples report a degree of conflict in their
Yeah,
relationship
and
due to
this is-
pornography.
Can-
One
real
in
quick,
4
on-
men report hiding porn from their partner.
On the
1 in
base.
4 men.
Awesome. Okay.
Hiding it from their partner.
Probably because they're looking
And
at
you
that
might-
prostate electrostim porn, okay?
But I think the larger kind of the meta point here, and you were speaking to this earlier, Destiny, but then we kind of got, the conversation unraveled a bit, but you were saying about how we have all this technology, and so now we can treat sex recreationally. Did I understand you correctly?
I'm saying that it's allowed us to change the way we view sex, yes.
Okay,
So
so
if-
my point is that even with the technology, the natural consequences and outcomes still find the way. Even if we can live in unreality for a short time with the technology. I'm just on OnlyFans for a moment. It's not going to hurt my relationship. I'm going to use a condom here so I'm not going to get pregnant, whatever it is, right? Or I'm not going to get this girl pregnant, whatever it is. The consequences catch up. And when I brought up the Guttmacher Institute statistic, the reason it mattered is because half of the women who are getting abortions, according to the research arm of Planned Parenthood, the biggest abortion chain, report using contraception in the month that they got pregnant. So they were using it, they thought they were doing the safe sex thing, and then they get pregnant and they show up for the abortion. So my point here is...
You keep bringing up the stat.
Yeah.
It wouldn't surprise me if, for instance,
But do you
70%
understand-
of people that die in car accidents are wearing seatbelts. That doesn't mean wearing a seatbelt is bad. It means that, if you're going to be in a car accident, you're probably in a car, you're probably wearing a seatbelt. If you're getting pregnant and you're having sex, you're probably trying some form of
getting
contraception.
into the car is promiscuous sex, maybe we should consider not getting into the car so much.
Okay,
And I
I'm
think
just saying
that's
that
the
number
point
you're
that
giving,
Trent and I are
when that's
making.
saying people were on
If
birth
getting
control.
into the car is going and sleeping with the prostitute, if getting into the car
Sure.
is
Here's a
hedonistic
question.
sex culture, then maybe
I just want to
we
ask you
should
about your study. You brought up a study.
question
I'm
the
not familiar with
cars.
this. You said that, what was that number that you quoted? You said
Which one?
50% of people said they were using birth control or whatever, and they got
Yes.
okay.
It's the Guttmacher Institute.
The types of in that study for birth control, did they include natural family planning and pull-out method?
No, this is contraception, birth control pills, and condoms or barrier
Hold on,
methods.
pull-out method and natural family planning are both considered forms of contraception.
I mean, that's like a very small fraction of a percent of people who even use that anyways.
First of all, that's
But it's-
not true.
That is true.
Especially among Christians, natural family planning is considered one of the only ethical ways to do contraception, which you know.
No,
'cause
this
you're-
is
yeah,
large.
right?
This is largely birth control pills and barrier method condoms or diaphragms or otherwise.
Okay, all right. I'd be curious if that's true, but even so,
It is true because we know there's a failure rate. There's a failure rate even with sterilization.
There is a failure rate, but
failure rate.
perfect use failure rate is 1%.
If
Real
you're
world
having
use
a
failure
lot
rate
of
could be.
promiscuous,
So why
if
is
you're
there
having
way
regular
less-
promiscuous sex or
why-
regular sex even with one partner that you don't want to have a kid with, eventually there's going to be, for many there will be a failure.
For
So
many,
why are those
hold on. For
birth-
many, there won't be. It's a
Yes.
1% failure rate. That's the
Let's
opposite
say
of many.
is almost 1 million abortions a year enough?
No,
and by the way,
1 million abortions a year from 330 million people. I don't know if that's enough.
Well,
hold
and
on.
by the way,
you're so
one other-
weaselly.
can I
When
say
you
one
said
other point?
Many people
Destiny,
experience
one
failure
other
rates. That's
point.
not what
One
1%
other
means.
point.
1% is not many.
One other point, because I
Okay.
know that you think abortion typically is acceptable up to a certain point. There's over 10,000 abortions that happen after the marker where you think it's a human life.
Okay.
So is 10,000 abortions, 10,000 murders, you would consider it murder, of children that are viable in this country a year? Is that worth the promiscuity of adults? 10,000 murders
But you're
of children?
linking that to sex work and promiscuity. I don't.
Yeah, I'm
I don't
connecting
you just
all
said,
of it.
oh, it's affecting 20. Alcohol is also I think 10% of divorces list alcohol is the issue. Is alcohol bad now?
I think alcoholism is bad.
Alcoholism is bad,
Yeah.
but alcohol, it doesn't have to be alcoholism. Do you think that's bad?
In moderation,
So porn,
yeah.
I agree. If you have
Well,
a
and I think
compulsive,
sex- but
problematic porn use is bad, but is porn bad and is sex bad? That's the
I
question.
think sex is
Wait,
great.
what's-
I think porn is bad.
What is the
Okay.
Jasmine? What's the difference between porn use and problematic porn use?
Problematic porn use is where people personally identify, that's the medical term, with it being a problem in their lives, which is a very small, the only representative sample we
Is
have
it-
puts it at 4%
Is
of
it
men.
possible for someone to use porn in a bad way if they don't personally feel anything bad about it?
What do you mean? Can you give me an example of how using porn in a bad way? In
A
that
husband
context would be?
a husband looks at porn, talks to OnlyFans girls, masturbates to them, and his wife hates it, but he doesn't think it's a big deal, and it's really hurting their marriage.
Yeah,
and she wants
just
to
like
leave.
if he drinks alcohol too much and she doesn't think, and she doesn't like it, but he still does it. That's it's bad when people violate the boundaries
Now,
of their
let me try another
relationship.
one then. Let's say, what if the wife says, you talking to any woman on the face of the earth hurts me and makes me upset? Would you say that wife has an inappropriate boundary?
No, because there's a lot of people that are like that, and they literally don't.
That her husband cannot talk to any woman, even like a female secretary, she's so hyper jealous.
My family is from the Middle East. This is literally how they set up society.
Do you think that's good?
I don't think that's good. But if there are people who that's the way that they're happy, I don't think that's good. I think the way you guys live your life is great. You guys don't think the way I live my life is great. The point is that when we allow people to do what's conducive to their own happiness, that's...
But what I'm asking you is that can a spouse have boundary expectations that are reasonable and unreasonable?
I think if we're going to use like a reasonable person standard, that depends on like the community. Sure,
Yes.
in certain communities, and in your community, porn is bad.
I'm just
In
talking
our
about the community. This community out here, who is non-disclosed location, would be listening in on this. That an unreasonable boundary would be a girlfriend says, "My boyfriend can't talk to any other women." That would be unreasonable, and a reasonable one would be, "My boyfriend should not be going around looking at other naked women."
That's fine, but still, like, you guys also think like masturbation in general.
Not you got not your. What do you mean? What do you mean by you guys?
Well, like I've watched your video. You said masturbation just in general is wrong. I don't think that our community standard would agree with you. I would agree that maybe I'm farther this way, but you're definitely nowhere near where the reasonable person.
I think
But
I bite the
we're
bullet.
not-
There are definitely boundaries that are like pathological that are not okay, and there are probably some that are okay.
But
can
we're
probably draw
not
a circle
debating
around some that
whether
are okay.
our sexual ethic is good or bad. We're debating whether your sexual ethic is bad.
Okay.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I'm wondering where you're
Is sex
seeing
work
these.
good
If
is
the
the
only
topic.
thing you have is that 20% of marriages have an issue with this, 20% marriages have issues with substances and etc. Are those things bad? You said
And that
alcoholism
it's
is
a
bad.
leading
I
factor
think
in
problematic
divorce,
porn
Jazmen.
use is also bad.
Do you
should
think
go get
divorce
help
is
from
bad?
that. Yes, and divorce rates have not gone up since the proliferation of porn.
But the point is that porn is a prominent factor in divorce.
So is substance abuse. So is alcohol.
But you
so
would
do
say
we,
substance abuse is bad. So why are you saying porn is good?
I think
No, wait. Because substance abuse. Wait. You're saying substance abuse is bad. Therefore, why isn't porn bad?
No, that's not what I said.
Hold
In
on.
the
That is
context-
literally what you just said. You
but
said
in the
why would
context of
substance abuse be
but
bad?
in the context of why people get divorced, Destiny, is what we were speaking
yes,
to.
no. But people don't get divorced because of substances. They get divorced because of
Behaviors.
substance abuse.
Well, and
but you're saying they get
behaviors
divorced because
of
of
the spouse that they
porn.
don't like.
Why not porn abuse?
Yeah, what's my question? Problematic porn is if it's
porn-
getting
it's
in the
not
way
porn
of your
abuse,
life,
it's porn
it's bad.
use.
But there are most of the people that consume porn, which is the majority of people, it's not getting in the way of their
Because
relationship. It's not getting in the way
because
of
we can delineate. We can say, oh, when you drink this much alcohol, it makes you sleepy or giggly or fall down drunk or wrecks your liver. Like, we can talk about the different effects at the different levels and what they do, and whether it makes sense for a wife to tolerate or spouse to tolerate or not tolerate. But when it comes to porn, I think it's very fair for a spouse to say, yeah, I'm not going to tolerate my spouse giving orgasm or giving that sexual desire to someone else. My biggest problem with the view you guys are defending is that you lose any principled basis to say things like infidelity or even you can't even define what extreme sexual behavior is as long as it's consensual.
Well, see,
Hold on,
wait.
wait. You can absolutely have all of these discussions. Just because you say, I think that my partner can watch porn, you're saying you can't have any more sexual boundaries if you grant that? Because I could explore your lives and find a million different things. Do you think your partner should be allowed to eat? Well, yeah, of course. Should they be allowed to have dinner with a member of the opposite sex alone at a restaurant? Maybe not. Some people wouldn't be necessarily comfortable with that. Just because you allow some things doesn't mean that you've eliminated every single thing in that bracket.
No, this goes back to my previous argument in saying about what boundaries are reasonable or unreasonable.
Yep.
That if sex is just another activity like other activities, then it becomes unreasonable to demand exclusivity for it.
Literally, nobody here is saying that sex is just another activity.
Yeah.
You seem
called it a recreational activity.
to have.
Then what is it?
Sure. There are some activities that can serve a variety of different purposes. Okay, for sex, it could be recreational, or it could be an incredibly emotional, romantic, bond-building thing. Yeah. Much the same that we could imagine, as I just brought up. Dinner could be whatever. I've gone out to dinner with a ton of people. Right. It's whatever. But dinner can also be an incredibly romantic, personal event. Some of these things, even some people could set boundaries around, and everybody would say that's fair. If you say, oh, I went out to eat with like 3 or 4 friends last night. Samantha was there. Oh, that's cool. That hits a lot differently than if you say, oh, I went out to eat last night with Samantha. We went to Ruth's Chris. We we had like a $200 dinner and wine. That doesn't feel fair. That feels like cheating. A lot of people would say that's not okay. You've actually like cheated on your partner because you took another woman out on a date. So I don't agree with this idea that just because you're saying sex can be used like romantically, that's the only way you can treat it. And as soon as you've used it even a little bit on this recreational side, you've lost all ability to have romantic utilization of it, because you wouldn't apply that same standard to literally any other activity in the world.
Because sex is not like any other activity in the world.
I didn't say it. Wait, what do you mean it's not like any other activity?
It isn't. Sex is something that's unique because it has the ability to create new people. It is designed to bring people together in a close, intimate bond that no other natural activity is created towards. And because it has those propensities, we have moral norms around it. And that in order to have prostitution and pornography, you have to say, well, those moral norms are just what puritanical people come up with. It's not intrinsic to the activity itself.
Sex can be utilized for other things. For instance, when you masturbate, you're not procreating. And masturbation is about as natural as it gets. Plenty of people learn to touch themselves at incredibly early ages. It's like a natural part of human development.
But it is not natural, the state that we're in now, where people can masturbate to a nearly an unending supply.
Wait.
I would like to finish, please.
Okay, it's not relevant to what I just said, but I'll bring it back.
It absolutely is relevant because we're talking about whether this is bad for society.
No, we're not. We were talking about if it was natural.
Whether what's natural.
You're saying that sex is made for procreation and blah, blah. First of all, ignore the fact that a designed process, well, we could fight over that, but that's going to get into religion. But I'm telling you that there are forms of natural sexual exploration, like masturbation, as you're growing up, that obviously don't produce children and aren't designed for that. I
didn't say sex is for procreation. That's not my answer to the question what sex is for. But I'm getting back that even if someone didn't have a complete answer to what sex is for, they wouldn't say, oh, well, it's like dinner, it's like other activities where there's just a multiplicity of meanings. There's no correct meaning to it. People have a lot of different meanings to it. I think a lot of people would end up rejecting that.
Rejected how? When casual sex is so prevalent, who do you mean a lot of people would reject that?
A lot of people will reject that when you talk about what is it for, like especially when you're in the context of a relationship.
Well, yeah, in a context of a relationship, it changes, of course.
And the most telling thing here, in my opinion, is all the social data shows, the vast majority of it shows that these problems arise when there's when there's a moral issue with it, right? Because alcohol, like you said, there is a link. They have linked the amount you drink with the probability of it leading to problems. With porn, there is no link. There's no study that can link the amount you watch with having problems with it in your social life, and even
not true.
That's
First,
not true.
There are studies done by Nicole Prouse, who is a pro-porn advocate, in 2013 that shows there's lesser reactivity in the brain to people who frequently use porn to be able to have attachment to spouses or significant others. Kuhn et al. In 2014 and other further studies in 2015 were the first to use magnetic resonant imagery to show the actual changes that take place in the brain when people frequently use pornography. It changes the brain and raises the dopamine ceiling so that in order to receive sexual arousal, you need more and more extreme and even violent forms of pornography in order to reach that. That's why you have things that now people are seeking out, not just sex, they're seeking out incest pornography, they're seeking out bestiality, they're seeking out group sex, rape play, and that is bad when society falls more into that pattern.
The whole point of that Nicole Prouse study, which I have here, is it's the exact opposite of what you'd expect to see going on in the brain of someone with an addiction. This is her words. The findings suggest self-proclaimed porn addicts don't quite have the same relationship with porn as someone that's with substance addiction. So yeah, she has done a lot of work. I'm a big fan of her that shows that it's not a real addiction, and a lot of it, she was also in this big study that found, this is the quote, moral incongruence around pornography use is consistently the best predictor of the belief that one is experiencing pornography-related problems or dysregulation. It seems to be, unlike alcohol, unlike substances, that it has a lot to do with how you feel about it. And I can just give you anecdotal experience from talking to so many people on my OnlyFans. My European fans, those cultures where it's not like sex isn't seen as such a like terrible thing, the way they interact with me is like, hey, how are you? Can I get this video? And they're like, okay, cool. The people who have this moral incongruence, their behavior is super erratic. They come, they go, then they delete everything, then they come back. Sometimes they send you a Bible verse. Like, these people are really struggling.
But then there are people who consistently ask for more and more kinds of, frankly, bizarre.
So Nicole
kinds of-
Prouse talked about this study. I think it was in Croatia, where there's actually evidence that they do it in the beginning, and then they eventually, the study they done showed that over time they go back to the vanilla stuff. And she was attributing it more to people being like, oh, this is kind of weird. Like, let me click on this, and then over time being like, okay, I'm over it. It's like kind of like a shock factor thing. That's what she found, and that's what she talked about.
And I would say there was a 2016 study by Wright et al. That did a meta-analysis. The other thing I'm concerned about is it raises the dopamine ceiling. And this was a study that was done across 22 countries showing an increase in the level of aggression in men who view pornography versus those who don't. And I think that makes sense when you look at the most popular forms of pornography involving things like domination, subjugation of women, using verbal abuse, gagging, asphyxiation, and a lot of other things. Like I said earlier about the increase in things like incest role play.
Real quick, just on two questions. So first of all, when you say an MRI shows changes in the brain responding to dopamine levels of people that continue to use porn, this is true of probably literally every single stimulating activity, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Like okay, so that's not unique to porn. That would be the same in playing
Potato
cars.
chips.
That'd be the same in eating potato chips. That'd be the same in playing video games. It'd be the same in watching movies or TikToks or whatever. So I don't know what that's supposed to prove. Secondly, just so I can understand this too.
It's in the relation of what you find to be sexually arousing. That people who continue to use porn and use porn more frequently need more and more varied or disturbing or intense
What are the-
pornography.
They have a higher
in
threshold.
the
Sure.
same way that an alcoholic needs more potent alcohol to feel a buzz than when they first started drinking.
Okay, those two things are completely dissimilar.
And then even
wait, hold on, wait. I'm sorry. Real quick. Okay, I hear this brought up so many times, and I'm curious if there's an actual number on this. I've heard this said over and over and over and over and over again. People who consume porn need to dramatically increase the extremeness of the porn they're consuming. What is the percentage of those people that happens with? Because I've heard that said over and over again. Is that actually true, or is that just like something we say and we take
Well,
it for
I think the
granted?
proliferation of, even what we were talking about.
Nope, that's not an answer. I'm
Yes,
asking a
Yes,
very specific
it
question.
is an answer, even if you
It
don't
is
like
an
it. The
answer,
fact that
Destiny.
when you look at Pornhub's most searched terms
Yep.
over the past 10 years and see that it's extreme things, which, by the way, your view can't tell me what's extreme or not.
Okay, the
when it comes to
2022,
pornography.
the searches that define 22 were reality, gender, group sex, outdoors,
Those-
positions, feet, and femdom. These are our top 7 types of searches.
So
Not on
do you think it's
Pornhub.
extreme? People
This
get
is from
people
Pornhub,
get, do you
published
think
by
it's
Pornhub for 2022, yeah.
Though that's not the complete search list. Those
The-
are highlights that were put up there. You have to scroll down more to get the full.
Teen-
No, you said the top. I'm asking what are the top ones.
Those
These are
were the
top ones.
highlights that they put in that graphic. I know the page you're looking at.
Oh, so you're saying that if I go to look for the most common searches, it's not those?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. my bad.
Teen
All right.
and
Yeah, scroll down more.
stepmom or step sibling.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Stepbrother,
You're right. So the most
stepsister.
searched terms were hentai, Japanese, oh no, MILF, which is the opposite of teen, lesbian.
Teen mysteriously disappeared after 2020 when at the same time Pornhub was when Pornhub was being investigated for having child sexual assault materials and credit card companies were refusing to work with them. If you go back and look at it from 2012 to 2019, teen is one of the most common categories searched for. It mysteriously disappears though after they have trouble with these credit card
Wait.
companies.
Does it mysteriously disappear, or did they just eliminate the category to try to stay on the safe side of all of the...
Well, now they've realized I don't know what they've done, but they have seemed to have kept certain terms from being searched for, but other people go and search for them. And then, of course, there's other sites beyond Pornhub. There's
Sure, there are.
Xhamster.
Okay, but I think we would consider this a good
but
thing.
you
This is like a
look-
form
you
of
look-
regulation working, right? If we think that people searching for teen porn
and
is
even
bad,
the ones you've put there, would you say hentai is a more extreme version of pornography?
depends on what you're looking for.
Would you say it's more extreme? Do you think it's more extreme to be aroused by watching someone be penetrated by tentacles?
Well, not all hentai porn is tentacle porn. There's lots of different types of hentai.
But that's a common element of it.